Hey, and welcome, Miss Kira Speaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. So this has nothing to do with what we're here for tonight. But ever since your girl watched that Wakanda Forever trailer, I've been in my feelings, y'all. I must admit. But anyway, we are here for another episode of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 14, episode 11, Cabin Fever. So as the episode opens, we see the ladies and they're in the Sprinter, leaving that dinner that we saw at the end of episode 10. And they're on their way back to their cabin mansion and they're discussing what the plans for tomorrow are. So they get back there, they're kicking it, they dancing, getting they twerk on, just having a good old time. So around 11 o'clock, they're hanging out in the kitchen and we hear Marlo say that if Kenya doesn't get here by tonight or by breakfast tomorrow, I don't want her here. About tired of hearing this broken record from Marlo. So now it's day 2 and we see Marlo and she's checking on breakfast for the girls. She runs off to get her makeup done and we see the ladies, they're all in their rooms and everybody is, checking in with their families via FaceTime or whatnot. So Drew, she's worried that Fatum might be coming. Sonia, she's on the phone with her sister Sherry and she's talking about the ultimatum that Marlo gave Kenya last night. And then, lo and behold, we see Kenya around 9 o'clock in the morning. She comes into the house and she's like, where is everyone? So she pops into Drew's room first and they hug and Drew gets off the phone and they're like, oh girl, let me look at your boobies. Just catching up. So Drew, she's happy that she's there. And when they go into the hallway, they run into Sonia. In her confessional, Drew says she hopes that Kenya's staying and she doesn't want any more foolishness between her and Marlo. Speaking of Marlo, she walks up to say her good mornings and she reaches her arms out to give Kenya a hug. Yeah, nope. That's what Kenya says. And in her confessional, Kenya's basically like, she don't do the fake ish. And I get it. So Marlo, in her confessional, she says Kenya is not going to spoil her vibe. She is going to have a good girls' day out. So Kenya, she's walking around. She says it's beautiful. She's like, oh, let me go check out the view. So Marlo's like, yo, Kenya, can you stop by before we head on out? Stop by my room and come see me. So after Kenya takes a little walk outside and looks at, how beautiful everything is, she ends up sitting down inside with Sonia. Sonia wants to know, do you have your bags with you? She's like, my bags were always in the car. Sonia's like, okay, so are you staying the night? Kenya says, if she can't get a charge for her car, she'll be there. Look at God, Sonia says, and Kenya's like, don't put that on God. And then they kind of laugh about it. So then Sonia says something to Kenya about not going to see Marlo for her gift. And Kenya's like, yeah, I'm in no rush. And that's because Miss Kenya knew it was about more than a gift. Kenya says she ain't got no sage. Ain't no telling what demons could be on those gifts, because she knows she's walking around with a lot of demons. In her confessional, Sonia questions if Kenya feels that way, then why even come? Marlo is going through a lot and she needs support around her. She says to Kenya, Marlo does respect and admire her. She's just a hard shell, but sensitive. When you don't show her attention and Kenya interrupts her and is like, I don't buy it. I'm not buying none of that. And Kenya's like, it's not just me, it's everyone. She's even done it to her own nephews. Yikes. So she talks about Marlo kicking the boys out the house because she was having a hard time, basically. So Sonia's like, this is someone that never imagined that they were going to be a mom. And Kenya's like, she pulls out her little mini imaginary violin. Kenya's like, because you can't give a child back. That's for life. Kenya says she ran away before when the same thing happened to her. So Kenya tells her she wanted to know her mom's family. They agreed to let her stay and finish high school. And then when it got too tough, her grandmother was like, yeah, we're just going to take you back. So on the car ride back, Kenya hopped out the car or the van, whatever it is, and tucked and rolled, and she ran away. She says they couldn't find her for weeks. She went to stay with the ex-boyfriend. She knows what it feels like, and it adds to a child's trauma and abandonment issues. Damn, Kenya definitely knows what she's talking about, and it's a sad story. It's not easy when it comes to kids, but you have to try each and every day. Kenya says she feels offended as a mom. Sonia says they're with Marlo's sister. Kenya's like, it doesn't matter. They're not in her care because it was too tough, right? So Kenya says she doesn't want to be pestered. She doesn't want anybody in her face. So Sonia in her confessional says she likes both Kenya and Marlo, and she feels like they can work it out. So a little bit later, Sonia shows Kenya to her room, and they're going to be sweet mates. So while Kenya's getting a little glam, Sonia goes upstairs to the kitchen and checks in with Sheree. So she interrupts Miss Sheree's breakfast by telling her Kenya's there, and she dropped a lot on her, and she thinks that they should go talk to Marlo right now. So Sheree's like I was about to eat now. Oh, okay. So they get Marlo, they go to sit Marlo down. Marlo's like, this don't look good. And it's not. So Sonia starts with she likes Marlo and Kenya, and she wants them to make it work. But this is her trip, and it's about her, and they should be pouring into her, but Kenya isn't. So in the confessional, production asks Sonia, what's the difference between bone collecting and peacemaking? That's a good question. So Sonia says, bone collecting is carrying tea without wanting to see things get better. So we hear Sonia tell Marlo that Kenya says she has demons. In her confessional, Sheree's like, Sonia's like a mini bone collector. She's passing the torch over to Sonia, and child, thank you. Talking about she's being a peacemaker. Ma'am, you are being messy right now. This is a conversation that y'all could have had at a later date. So Sonia continues by telling her that Kenya had strong opinions about the boys, and why she say that. So Marlo's like, this is about to be bad. And Sonia tries to explain to her that Kenya talked about her own experience. And yet, after that heartfelt conversation, you still ran to Marlo with the mess. So Marlo wants to know who told her about putting the boys out. So Sheree admits that she had a conversation with Kenya, and we see a flashback to just that. So Sonia tells Marlo that Kenya feels like she doesn't get to not parent them anymore just because it gets too hard. Marlo says she doesn't want the bad energy, and Sonia and Sheree, they ain't making the situation no better right now. Marlo decides she wants to have a one-on-one with Miss Kenya. So the ladies are in the kitchen having breakfast, and Candy fills Kenya in that they're going to be going gem mining. So Sheree and Sonia, they join Candy, Kenya, and Monietta in that kitchen. So Kenya tells Sheree she has a 4 o'clock phone call with her guy. And then we see a flashback to Sheree and Kenya having a conversation. So Kenya's telling her she knows a lot of people in fashion and she could hook a sister up. So she plans to do just that at 4 o'clock. Kenya tells her, have your notes ready, have that notebook. And Sheree's like, yeah, she was trying to do everything all by herself. Candy said she was doing the same thing until her friend told her she was running $1 million business on a bootleg budget. Candy says Sheree has the biggest brand that's not a brand, and it makes no sense that people can't buy it. Even if you just did a small line, it would sell out in no time. Then you can use that money to reinvest, hiring more people, and take it to the next level. In her confessional, Sheree basically says with Candy's business experience, she welcomes the advice. Drew comes in like, oh, Candy's giving a master's class. Shit, I hear that, and I'm sure there are plenty of us that are willing to take Miss Candy's business advice if she's willing to give it. So Marlo's in the kitchen and Kenya's in the kitchen, and Marlo is discussing this whole gem mining that they're about to go do. She says they'll come back and they'll have some dinner and they'll play some games, and then there's a knock at the door. It's Fatum, and I really didn't think she was coming. And Marlo says the same thing. And Drew, she looks and sounds annoyed. I can't catch a break. Why is she here? Drew says in her confessional. So Marlo tells the ladies to go on and head to the Sprinter, but she asks Kenya, can she stay back so they can have a quick chat before they get into the Sprinter? So Kenya, she ignores her. And after Marlo repeats herself, Kenya's like, let me figure it out. Marlo's like, there's nothing to figure out. We can speak or you can go. So Kenya, she's asking her to watch her tone. Marlo, she gets a little sarcastic. As she repeats herself, Kenya walks off. Marlo decides she's going to follow her around the house to have this conversation with her. It's 11 a.m. Candy's like, it's too early. Can we just go do an activity first? So we see Kenya, and she runs room to room, laughing like we're watching a horror movie. In her confessional, she says she is channeling Sonya. Okay, girl. Then we hear Kenya say, get off me. Marlo's like, I'm not touching her, because they make a circle and end up right back in the kitchen where they started. So Marlo tells Kenya she looks awful as a black queen. And Kenya's like, we can have a conversation when you stop insulting me. And Candy's like, but she's not insulting you right now. And at this point, I think all the ladies were over it. So Kenya's like, listen, we can stand here and you can say whatever you want with all the ladies present, but that's not what Marlo wants. So Candy points out that Kenya doesn't like when people poke at her. So why is she doing this? Kenya's like, she doesn't like when people go off and insult her. Marlo brings up Kenya mentioning her nephews, and she's like, let's go about our business. Kenya, have a safe trip back. Have a safe trip back, Kenya. Kenya, have a safe trip back. Child, so the ladies, they head on outside. So Marlo tells Kenya to keep her nephew's name out of her mouth, which is kind of funny because Marlo don't keep nobody's name out of her mouth. Not Mark, not Brooklyn, not nobody. Kenya, no one in this group will take me away from Michael and William. That's because you gave them up. Ooh, there it is. And I was worried about Candy telling Kenya, but I guess she wasn't the only one, and here we are. She better leave Michael and William out of it. So they head off to the cars. Marlo tells one of the drivers not to let Kenya get in the car, but Kenya just ignores her and gets in another one of the cars. Marlo's like, she's not going with me for my itinerary today. She's jealous and intimidated. I'm an icon and you're an ex-con. Bish, bye. Child, Kenya got them lines. And so they wait. 30 minutes in the driveway, and everyone is trying to reason with Kenya, who don't want to hear it. An hour later, Candy asks Marlo what the deal is. Sonya tries to get Kenya to talk to Marlo. So Kenya's like, so you had a problem with how Drew handled Sheree, but you don't have a problem with this? Okay, girl. Kenya was basically like, get on out my face with the BS. Because I think she already, it was clear that Sonya ran back and ran her yap. In her confessional, Sonya says she feels dismissed by Kenya. And I am just waiting for the episode that Kenya lets Miss Sonya have it for all the fence straddling that she's doing. An hour and 30 minutes later, and still in the driveway. Child, I might have gone back in the house, eat something, watch some something, play on my phone, but sit in the driveway for an hour and a half, not I. So Marlo's like, I really want to go gem mining. And Drew's like, we all do. So Marlo's like, well, come on then. And Drew's like, but I'm not riding with that bitch. So for Toom, she starts to going off. Drew's calling her a lap dog and barking. Candy at her confessional's like, what's up with all the dog stuff? Candy, we don't know. So with all of this going on, Candy's over it. She takes Monietta. They grab Kenya. They go around the back of the house. They're going to go to the lake and take some pictures. Marlo has gotten back into bed. So Sonya and Sheree go talk to Marlo and try to get her out this doggone bed. So meanwhile, the ladies are on the trampoline having a good old time, taking pictures. Sonya and Sheree, they finally get Marlo's ass out the house. Somehow almost all the ladies end up in the back by this trampoline. When Kenya gets off, Marlo gets on and she wants Sheree to get on with her. I was so confused about this boot situation, but I'm gonna let it go. So Marlo, she gets on there and she jumps it out. And by the time she gets off, she's like, Kenya can come with us because she done jumped all the negative energy out, I guess, child. So I think it's 2 hours later, the ladies finally get in the car and head over to the gem mining place. Outside, Marlo thanks Sonya for for riding for her. So they get inside and Marlo's all excited and she wants the man to explain, like, what's the gem mining? Tell us what we got to do. And the man, he sounds so, he's not enthused at all. Like, he act like he don't even want to be there. So Kenya's like, oh, I'm sorry, I disrupted your Trump sign. And that could be why he has that funky attitude. In her confessional, Kenya says she was just cleaning up the place. It looked a little dirty, a little out of place, a little angry. So she decided to tidy up a bit. I hear that. So the ladies, they get started and they commence to gem mining. And in her confessional, Drew's like, this is corny and lame. But the ladies, they do find some red jasmine and some topaz. And when they're done, they kind of all sit around to, I guess, have a little conversation. Candy, she's talking to Drew, asking Drew how she's feeling. Did you sleep in the van on the way here? As soon as Fatum comes over, Drew gets up and Fatum's like, come back here. Where are you going? Sit down. You don't got nothing to say now. A mess. And totally unnecessary. So as they wrap it up, Marlo apologizes to the guy for this mishap. In her confessional, Marlo says she doesn't think that the trip is going to get back on track. In the car, she tells Sonia and Sheree that she's drained and her nephew's birthday is tomorrow and she's stressed out. So not only did you give the boys away and take this trip, but you took the trip when one of the boys, Marlo, baby, this is why folks is talking about you, okay? So they get back to the cabin mansion and the ladies are hanging out in the kitchen as they normally do. Marlo, she's in her closet packing, child. She says she came for fun and support. And Marlo says she shouldn't have invited Kenya. The energy was better before she got there. And so Marlo, she wants to have a house meeting. So the ladies, they sit in the living room wondering what the hell is going on. And Marlo comes in and she says, the reason for the trip was to relax and recharge and bond with the girls. She's done everything but recharge and she feels worse than before she left. So Fatum, she apologizes to Marlo and she's still throwing a little bit of shade to Drew. So Drew's like, some people, I'm sitting right here. And Fatum's like, shut up. Getting her attitude, getting turned up yet again. It goes left. Drew, she throws a bone and tells Fatum to fetch. And everyone had something to say about it in their confessional because Drew, she stays with a prop, honey. But Sonia was like, Drew got 3 kids, a husband, 15 assistants, but she ain't got no dog. They asking Drew if she had a dog. She said she used to. Stays with a prop. Marlo says even if they have issues, it was supposed to be about her. She wants to be happy and she's not happy. So she's called for cars and she wants everyone to leave. Sonia, she looks shocked. Thanks, but no thanks for making me feel better. Okay, Kenya says, and she is out. And I know Kenya was glad that she drove. Sonia in her confessional says she ain't never been kicked out of nowhere. Candy in her confessional, she basically says the same, like, I ain't never been kicked off a trip. So they sit and talk for a minute because Monietta at one point, she tried to rationalize with Marlo, but it wasn't happening. So Marlo, she walks off and she goes and she confides in her makeup artist. Everyone packs and gets ready to head out. And basically that's where we end. So in the after show, Marlo did say she stayed back a couple of days and enjoyed herself. And I finally did get to watch Candy's speak on it with Fatum, where they said Marlo was talking about Brooklyn. And that's just a no-no. How did you guys feel about the episode? Please drop your thoughts down in the comments. Marlo wanted validation for kicking them boys out. And when she didn't really get it, she threw them out too. And damn, Marlo. This episode was a little for me. Marlo, you finally get a peach. You finally have a trip and you send everybody home early. What's a freaking waste? If you have made it this far, put that peace finger emoji down in the comments for Marlo chucking up the deuces to the girls at the end of the episode. I hope you'll come back and join me for my recap or review of episode 12. While you're here, please check out some of our other content. Thank you. And before you go, like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate you. Peace.